Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
The CRY Corporate Responsibility Summit addressed the key challenges faced by companies in creating and implementing corporate responsibility strategies.
This summit has always, it's an annual feature, and it always attracts, I think, a very good set of speakers as well as the audience that is truly engaged. And I think the kind of conversations that we have here are real, and the interaction therefore becomes meaningful.
CRY, Child Rights and You, has championed the cause of India's uneducated, exploited and vulnerable children since 1979. With the support of concerned Indians, CRY has changed the lives of over 2 million children by supporting over 300 grassroots initiatives in more than 13,000 communities from villages and slums across India. CRY attributes its success in the field to transparency, managing and enabling their projects, and standing up for irreversible change.
CRY essentially was established in 1979 by a group of young Indians. The whole objective of the organization, the mission of the organization, is to ensure that India's children get their rights, and to do this by inherently ensuring that each adult Indian takes responsibility for children and takes action for India's children.
In its third year, the CRY Corporate Responsibility Summit tackles the issues and implications on all profit-making companies, taking into account the diverse aspects of business imperatives, stakeholder engagement, impact on brand, and long-term sustainability. The event kick-started with founding partner and executive chairman of Volans and co-founder of sustainability, Mr. John Elkington, leading a dialogue on corporate responsibility in India, implications of the company's bill, with chairman Tata Consulting Engineers Prasad Menon, chief economist of the Aditya Birla Group Dr. Ajit Ranade, and managing director Charioteer I4L Krishnamurthy Vijayan.
Just before we came onto the stage, Ajit, I think it was you, was just asking the question, where else in the world do we see countries doing what India has just done with the Companies Act? The world is watching with great interest to see what happens. And what we're going to do is ask each of our panelists about how this act potentially impacts their thinking and activity. And I'm going to start with Prasad. And we all know that the Tata Group has been doing this sort of thing for a very long time. And my assumption would be that this has absolutely zero impact on your thinking or activities. But Prasad, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The role of business and indeed of capitalism has become the focus of a lot of hot debates in the past few years. And this has only increased in the last 5 years since the problems that we've had with the global financial crisis. And it's indeed gained momentum. And a recent Edelman Trust Barometer indicates that in the minds of the public, there is a huge trust deficit with respect to the government and to business. And the development story in many emerging economies all across the world has actually reached a critical stage, if you like. While business and industry have created enormous wealth across the world, there have been significant costs to society. And I think it's only recently that we've started or begun to understand what those costs are. And what's happened is that the public, the stakeholders, have started to raise their voices. And they've started to raise their voices against corrupt governments, against what they see as greedy financial institutions, against what they see as exploitative industry and business.
Thank you very much indeed, Prasad.
Thank you.
And Ajit, thank you. I'd love to hear what a chief economist thinks.
It seems like we have very rapidly come to a different position. We say that we are no longer, that is today, in 2013, we are no longer in what is called shareholder capitalism. We have rapidly moved to a new phrase called stakeholder capitalism. And in fact, I'm not making this up because the champions of shareholder capitalism are the people who believe that companies should be in the business of maximizing shareholder value. I don't know if they're in the audience, but they used to say it. They were the champions of this maxim. McKinsey, they are now on the forefront of expanding the definition and ambit to share stakeholder capitalism. They talk about sustainability and all that.
Thank you immensely for that. And I find that quite worrying, that as an agenda goes mainstream, it becomes diluted in different ways. And I think what you're doing, Krish, in the area of impact investment, I think is hopefully pushing us in a different direction. I think impact investment is one of the most exciting movements in this space. And maybe you could just start by talking a little bit about that field.
In the Indian context, and particularly in the context of CSR, impact investing is probably going to resonate better with the corporate world than pure charity. The reason being that, as we were speaking about a lot of people wanting to avoid charity because it's the law. That is a problem, and perhaps for them impact investing would make sense, because what do you do in impact investing? You try and invest in organizations that make a profit, but at the same time achieve certain social goals.
Thank you, Krish.
Let's have a look at the top 3 nominees.
The CRY Corporate Responsibility Summit continued with the CRY Child Rights Champions Awards. Awards were given out in the following categories. The CRY Child Rights Award went to Dabur India, and the Employee Engagement Award was presented to HCL Technologies.
We are employee first, customer second organization. So a lot happens at the bottom of the pyramid, and we believe that the young leaders are the one who can sustain the 2% CSR bill. If you don't engage employees first, you cannot sustain your projects.
The CRY Corporate Responsibility Summit was well underway with their first masterclass featuring founding partner and executive chairman of Volans and co-founder of Sustainability, John Elkington, and Associate Vice President HR, Diversity and Sustainability, HCL Technologies, Srimati Shivashankar, on crafting your CSR strategy.
The European Union definition makes the point that at least historically, CSR has been a voluntary agenda. And that has been crucial, because if you force people to do things, very often they go on the defensive, they try and protect what they see as the short-term interests of their business or organization or industry. And the core concept of corporate social responsibility has been that we need experimentation. We need people to try new things and to some degree fail and learn from those failures. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, please.
I have questions for there's a sector called MSME sector, medium, small enterprises.
Yeah.
What sort of CSR strategy he can have, and how he should go about it?
I think we've got to try and give bigger companies a sense of responsibility to help some of those smaller groups. I also think there's a hugely important role for some of the traditional associations and federations to play in helping raise the understanding and the competence, the abilities of the smaller companies.
So can I add to that?
Yes, please.
So I think the definition of corporate social responsibility to many of us seem to be existing outside our own companies, and it's about the communities and societies that we operate. I think when it come to MSMEs, in my view, I think corporate responsibility starts with the company and how they operate and how they integrate responsibility in their day-to-day operations. And then came the concept of the inclusive growth and how we define the inclusive growth. Is it going to be restricted only to the affirmative action, or is it beyond that, right? This is a very important case study for many of us who would love to work with companies in this space or corporates trying to promote inclusive growth as part of the 2% CSR bill. This 2% certainly asks for inclusive growth. I don't know whether you've gone through the requirements from the company bill. It asks for inclusive growth. How companies shape inclusive growth is completely dependent on the nature of business you are in, and how you want to put up your CSR council in place, and the CSR advisory council decides the inclusive growth.
The second masterclass was on leveraging CSR to build your brand and featured Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Future Brands, Santosh Desai, and Head Strategy Insights and Design, Future Brands, Anirban Mukherjee.
If you look at this whole notion of marketing,
I find it very interesting that, marketing as against sales was about making people want to buy you, making people like you, so not forcing things down your throat. So you had the push, the language, and the pull language, that you don't, sales push and consumer pull and brand pull. And then the idea was that the brand would be a magnet of some kind, and you would draw people in. That is what is professed about marketing. The implicit mental model at work, however, if you were to look at how it gets practiced, I would argue is a little different. And we can see this through the language it uses and the sort of model that it uses. The idea of a mental model, just to take a brief divergence, is really the notion of a mental model is the fact that all of us have a certain implicit understanding of how anything works. It's a model. I mean, it's a, to put it crudely, an engineering drawing of some kind. It's a chart, but it's a chart that we don't articulate.
If you actually look at CSR today, and the point that he made is that this imagination of business and how businesses and brands see themselves have over time created this sense of a vacuum. And what we're seeing, the conversation about CSR is really an attempt to fill this vacuum. Businesses have changed the way they see themselves. It's profit oriented. Everything is about quarter to quarter financial performance, and that's the only thing that seems to matter. There are no people. When businesses think of people, they think of them as shopping bags and wallets, and that's how marketing often describes consumers. Share of wallet. We need to get into the shopping bag of so and so woman, the small town something. There are no communities anymore. Look at globalization and everything else and the way business imagines itself. Now it's all about markets. So you go from A market to B market, and you get into, from one category you expand and get into other categories. As society modernizes, and we are seeing that in India as well, all around us, people will stand up and ask, what are you doing to protect our collective interests? Like I said in the beginning, that when we talk about integrating CSR and brands, there is an implicit assumption that CSR lies outside brands, that it is located outside. Purpose, brands really don't have any purpose. They need to find some cause, find some purpose around them, and use that. And then suddenly CSR becomes this new game-changing marketing tool, that we can use to zap the consumers and make ourselves look really good. But does it ring true?
The CRY Corporate Responsibility Summit hosted a conversation on digital media and CSR with the head of Business Development India and Southeast Asia Twitter, Arvinder Gujral, Managing Director and CEO Hungama Digital Media Entertainment, Neeraj Roy, and Industry Head Financial Services Google India, Sujit Narayanan, in conversation with Managing Director iProspect Communicate 2, Vivek Bhargav.
I would like to start off with Neeraj. Neeraj, would you like to give 2 minutes of your thoughts on the role of digital in the field of CSR and social media?
Sure. If you look at what's happened for us, our own sort of mini version of Arab Spring in the last about 12, 18 months, driven tremendously by the advent of social media. In fact, if anyone were to sort of rename CSR from corporate social responsibility, I believe, what we are witnessing is almost like citizen social responsibility of its own nature, wherein people have used that as a means to effect change in corporate society and to say, express themselves.
If a country can be galvanized by one tweet which is less than 140 characters, right? Your causes, which are as noble as anyone else's, can be galvanized using social media. I'm not here to propose that Twitter is the only platform, but it's important that when you look at digital, first understand how digital can be used before blindly going into it and saying, okay, let's do a tick mark on our marketing checklist. Hey, did I do something on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube? That's not the objective, right? Every social movement and every social media is used by connectors. And if you're looking at really galvanizing support for the causes that you're fighting for, the early adopters and the guys who really are the connectors in this country are on digital.
So I think, Sujit, you could share some examples. I think YouTube and especially Google as a company is doing a lot of CSR initiatives.
One of the flaws of the digital medium essentially is that our attention spans is limited, right? 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 15 seconds, you've either got me engaged or you haven't. So it's the art of storytelling in a larger canvas, if I may use the word. The Lifebuoy ad perhaps is one of the record-breaking ads that we've seen, or the campaigns that we've seen essentially, because it managed to garner attention of consumers who chose not to skip the ad when they had a chance. And it's a 3-minute long ad, right? It's a 3-minute long campaign or story which is there. And that becomes critical. You should have a good narrative. You should have a genuine and an honest story which you're trying to communicate. And I think consumers are willing to listen to that.
The summit wrapped up with an update on the CRY WKC Children's Council with founding partner and executive chairman of Volans and co-founder of Sustainability, John Elkington, founder director of White Kettle Consulting, Rama Iyer, business head and VP marketing HT Media, Shantanu Bhanja, and Chief Executive Officer CRY Child Rights NU, Pooja Marwa, in conversation with writer, activist and trustee CRY Child Rights NU, Rajni Bakshi.
I would like to begin by asking Rama to give us an overview of how this idea has taken shape and what is the Child Rights Council going to be?
I think what's different between India and the West is a lot of the community-led issues in the West is really something the state takes care of under social security or under certain rights that people already have. So a lot of the best practices were in areas of environmental sustainability. And that's when I think this team decided that we need to set our own case studies, we need to have our own Indian heroes, we need to have our own Indian benchmarks that we will set. And we will do it at 2 levels. One is that we want everyone to believe that it can be done. I think we also want to demonstrate that this is how it can be done. And I think that the company Bill has only made the cause more real, it's made it bigger. Now everybody's talking about it. At the same time, most people don't know how to go about it. Child rights, thankfully, is something that everyone agrees that if we want to really change the way the country is going to be tomorrow, then the best place to intervene and the place to intervene for maximum impact really is with child rights.
Shantanu, can you tell us how and why HT has chosen to be, wonderfully chosen to be part of this initiative?
Sure. I think something that people may or may not know is that our newspaper was founded in 1924 by Mahatma Gandhi as a part of India's freedom movement. And through the last 90 years, we've always stood for driving human rights, about driving, getting people their basic rights, about driving change. About a couple of years back, the conversation that we had in the company is that it's not enough for us as a newspaper to just be writing about the people driving the change, but it's important about being the change that you want to see in Gandhi's words itself. And that's really where our involvement in a serious company-wide engagement through the through the You Read, They Learn program, as we call it, began.
I think to me the council is really exciting because it is a space where we can potentially get all of us who think seriously about the future of this country, about how business, somebody said in the other panel just now, and I sort of thought it was so relevant. He said the business of business is social. It is time for that idea. It has arrived. And, brands are going to need to look better because of employees, because of consumers, because that is what everybody is telling us.
While it's of course important for business to recognize and act upon its social responsibility, it's equally important for the social action sector to recognize the importance of business.
Yeah.
And that not to equate, for example, all profit making with exploitation.
The CRY Corporate Responsibility Summit provided in-depth learning and global best practices, taking crucial steps towards understanding current practices, trends and challenges in corporate social responsibility.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.